Let's get going.
Let's go.
Welcome to the Beyond the Pump podcast, episode 1, where bodybuilding is broken down to more than just sets, reps, and stage lights.
In this podcast, we will deep dive into the world of building muscle, nutrition, nutritional strategies, PEDs, supplementation, training, and elite coaching, amongst many other things.
And probably voicing our strong opinions on everything.
Oh, yes, that is very true. My name is Jack Earle.
And I'm Adam Northover.
And this is the Beyond the Pump podcast.
Right, let's get into it. So, if people don't know us, we should probably start off with who the fuck we are.
Absolutely.
So from my point of view, I've been coaching since 2018. So I'm no flash in the pan. I've been around the block a little bit. At this moment in time, I coach males only. I've done that for some time now. My wife is a full-time coach as well. She coaches all the females. I have 50 males on my books at this moment in time, and I specialize in taking guys from average to feeling superhuman. That's how I like to market it. But essentially, I just want guys to be the best possible version of themselves. And yeah, my background, I was a cop for 10 years. That was when I started getting into my bodybuilding journey. Really, I needed a presence, like no one's going to listen to a skinny cop who tells people what to do. Like, how are you going to break up a fight? They're just going to look at you and tell you to do one. So that was my kind of gateway into getting bigger. And then over the years, it became more and more of a passion. And in 2018, when I was still in the police, I decided to do a bodybuilding show, and placed second in the novice category at the time, and got the bug really. Although the prep was savage, and I said I'd never compete again, but 5-6 competitions down the line, and I'm still going. So yeah, it's just a passion for me, man. And I love coaching. I love bodybuilding. I love the lifestyle. It is an extension of who I am.
That's perfect, mate. Yeah, and that's, at the end of the day, that is what a lot of this is all about. It's all about you versus you. And if you can help people become the best version of themselves, whether it's from the year before or many years prior to that, that is the ultimate goal. Whether you're on stage, whether it's health, a healthy lifestyle to improve health, fat loss, muscle building, the journey always goes on. As for myself, my name's Jack Earle. So I can't really say I've got much of a fancy background or much that really goes into detail. I've always floated from job to job, always looking for that one thing I've always wanted to love to do, that I want to do day in, day out, and that is coaching. It's something I wanted to start 2-3 years ago, but I never really had the confidence in backing myself. I thought like, maybe I need to learn a bit more, maybe I need a bit more insight, a bit more knowledge behind myself to maybe back myself, especially with a fitness industry that is forever growing. But now to be in that position where I can help people myself, and again, whether it's through fat loss, muscle building, getting on stage, beating that previous year's best, being in that position to be able to help someone make their goals achievable, guide them along the way, and hopefully teach them a thing or two, it's an absolute privilege. As for bodybuilding, I absolutely love my bodybuilding, as you quite well know. I've been competing now I did a couple of shows about 5-6 years ago, but nothing serious. I think that was more finding my feet, and such as yourself, I got bitten by the bug. Mm-hmm. So got back onto the PCA stage maybe 3 years ago now, when I went into the Saxon Classic as my first show. Did quite well, got my top 3. Here we are, we're going back into show this year. Bit of a change in scenery from classic physique to men's open. My overall goal in life would be to be a 212 competitor. That is the end goal for me, and hopefully I'll get there one day. But I mean, as for that, mate, that is as far as it goes for now.
And that is us in a nutshell. Like coaching embodies us. We love it, and it's rewarding in that there isn't many better feelings than really helping someone surpass their own expectations of themselves. I think that's one of the big reasons I do it, and I know you're the same. And then your bodybuilding, mate, this year is going from strength to strength, and we'll talk potentially more about that either later on in today's episode or maybe another episode.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think what we should do is get into a little bit, because at the moment, one of the big things that we're hearing about is these GLPs. And, a lot of people have heard of Mounjaro. That's the big one at the moment. Mm-hmm. But there's actually others on the market, and we have opinions on their use or misuse. So, I don't know. First of all, I think semaglutide was the one that started it all off. And this was the big thing. And essentially it was marketed for diabetics who were massively overweight, and it would help slow gastric emptying, so that it would just kill their appetite. And then with that, you've got the abuse of it, where people were just killing their appetite so they couldn't eat. And then they'd end up malnourished. And we all know now that it's leading to things like bone density issues.
Oh, yeah.
And other health complications brought about the fact they're not consuming nutrients. And with anything, there's uses for it, but equally there's the opportunity to misuse it. It's like alcohol, like have it in moderation, it's fine for you. Abuse it and it'll fuck you up. It's the same with these GLPs.
Yeah, and that seems to be one commonality within the fitness industry as well, is abuse.
Mm-hmm.
Now you find a lot of people that are using certain things like semaglutide, tirzepatide, even retatrutide. A lot of these people use it without structure, without learning about the substance as well. Going back to what you said about their bone density issues, I mean, if you're going by semaglutide especially, it is massively catabolic towards people, and especially when you're, well, essentially starving yourself through the lack of appetite, it leads to catabolism. There has been reports and studies proven within bone density issues, bone wastage especially, but also that leads into muscle wastage as well. So not only there's a lot of people that head into using these drugs that are very, very overweight, and yes, of course, they might be losing fat along the way, but they're also setting themselves backwards because they cause a lot of other issues in their body.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is where it gets interesting. We will stem into this a bit more as we head into the GLP-3 section, because I think that's where our opinion lies fairly equally upon each other.
Definitely.
But yeah, headed into tirzepatide.
Yeah, so again, this was like the next level. So we had that introduced, and that's more commonly known as Mounjaro. And, you know, I hear mums tell me when I'm picking up my daughter, oh, just so you know, I'm taking this. I'm like, I haven't even asked, but okay. So they'll tell me about, oh, I'm on Mounjaro now and it's really working. And it will work. And it works in two different pathways, because yes, you've got the slowing of the gastric emptying, but you've then got a different aspect where essentially optimizes insulin sensitivity, which we know is what we're trying to achieve by becoming almost fat-free and lean. Yeah. It's where you will build the most muscle and lose the most fat. Your body can effectively partition nutrients around the body. So actually it's that much better than semaglutide. But again, it can be abused. And if people are just using it to literally negate their appetite, just to dull it entirely, they'll find that these bone density issues will still arise because they're not consuming the micronutrients they need. The muscle wastage, if they were consuming enough protein, they'd fight against this to a degree. But they don't. It's just, right, how do I kill my appetite? I'll take a huge dose first thing of the week, and then bang, I can't eat. It's ridiculous, and it pisses me off because, yeah, okay, you are morbidly obese. Your only solution to that now is no discipline. You're just going to take a jab. Then what happens when you come off of it? Because you can't take it forever. Otherwise, you just waste away. And then what happens? Where's your plan? Where's your structure? Whereas us as coaches, we can say to people, okay, we can take away a little bit of food focus for you. We can help optimize your insulin sensitivity, and we can coach you into using it correctly as a tool alongside a structured training plan, structured diet. And actually, this will help you get to your end goal. What are your thoughts on Mounjaro, I guess?
Honestly, not too far different to what it would be with tirzepatide or Ozempic. I personally, and I'm sure this will upset people, but this is just, at the end of the day, it's an opinion-based podcast.
Of course.
A lot of things we will say are based on opinion amongst studies. I think they're a lazy person's drug. Mm-hmm. And I do think they're a lazy person's drug, and I know that'll upset people. But at the end of the day, I mean, I know people that are using things like this. They're going out the weekends, partying, eating whatever they want. They're going out having a massive like KFC bargain bucket, gone out with their mates later on that night having 12 pints, and then you'll get later in the week, they're like, oh, well, damn, I haven't lost weight this week. Oh, better up the dose.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we've gotten into this stigma, especially in societal standards now, where that word work, to work for something has become, well, it's almost a fear, isn't it? And I find that like people almost use these as a scapegoat for their lack of work rate, their lack of effort, their lack of discipline. I mean, we all know the bottom line is, and again, we could all simply diet. We could all simply diet, train, hit some cardio, get your steps in to get the goals.
But it's hard work, Jack. People don't want that.
And that's exactly it. And that is exactly why this is funded heavily by the NHS. And it's why it's such a marketable drug. And this is funny enough, relates into retatrutide as well, because retatrutide doesn't sell as well as Ozempic and Mounjaro, does it?
Not at the moment. Also, it's not readily available. So I think it's still undergoing like final trials before then it'll be attributed to some kind of, I don't know, Pfizer or something, who will then release it as the new wonder drug. Obviously, at this moment in time, it's available through various peptide sites. And let's go on to the GLP-3, and I'll let you take the lead on this one.
Well, GLP-3. Well, I think obviously one of the massive differences between the GLP-1 and GLP-2, being that this one's GLP-3, and that would be the glucagon receptor, which is an amazing ability, especially, you know, depending on what your goal is. And I think, you know, looking into a lot of studies, a lot of people, me and you watch, you know, it's now coming into focus. Talking from a bodybuilding perspective, now you can use this in a prep. You could use this in the off season. One of its amazing abilities, what I find is absolutely staggering, is that, you know, you could have your meal, you've just digested your fats, carbs, and proteins, but to have a drug that's flowing within your body, systemically and synergistically working within your digestive system, and that's just, you've had your fats, carbs, and proteins coming and saying, hang on a minute, I can tell what these three are. It'll push the fats aside, put them straight into the adipose tissue, and it will use that for fuel. And then it will bring the carbs and the proteins in straight to the muscle you've broken down. The nutritional partition and effect of this drug is simply phenomenal. The increased insulin sensitivity is another fantastic attribute as well, especially again for muscle building. As you said earlier, if you're in a lean disposition, and again, you don't have to be single digit body fat. I think that's where this gets very misconstrued with people. You don't have to be single digit body fat when I say this about building muscle. But if you are in a decent body fat range, let's say you are between that like 9 to 13%, the chances of you growing muscle is a much heightened percentage.
And keeping body fat off as well, which is key.
And we're not just talking any type of body fat here, we're talking visceral, which is massively important. You know, especially with a visceral fat buildup. And again, especially in bodybuilding, you know, we consume a lot of food. There's a lot of carbs that go in, a lot of proteins, a lot of fats, obviously. And, you know, and I've said this to you before, and this is why I feel that, not that insulin's going to become obsolete, but I do believe eventually it will start to be pushed aside in the bodybuilding world, because going back to the glucagon receptor, with RETATRUTIDE in our system, it's able to tell what we're bringing in. Insulin does not. It will just pile up.
And then we've got another pathway in there as well, whereby it increases your metabolic rate, which is, again, a bit exciting for your bog standard lazy person who wants the benefits of exercise without actually doing it. You know, if you can have an exercise mimic where it's essentially increasing your metabolism, it's a game changer. So people are finding that they lose fat at a more accelerated rate.
And then going into it again with bodybuilding, I think one of the most staggering attributes of this is the fact how it shuts down your AMPK receptor, meaning you simply will not go catabolic. And that's the last thing you want when you're in a show prep. You
Absolutely.
do not want catabolism. You know, let's say you've just had the off season of your life, you just added 6 to 8 pounds of lean tissue. And the thing is, people assume that if you've got PEDs in your system still whilst you're cutting down and you're trying to get to that single digit body fat, oh, that's right, I'm safe. No, you're not. No, you're not. You know, you will still lose. You're putting your body under a massive amount of stress, especially through low calories. Your CNS gets attacked heavily.
And then on top of that as well, what we've got, and we'll touch on those subjects later, is people make mistakes when they train in the gym. So, you know, just relying on drugs, that's only one part of the equation, and it's actually towards the bottom of the ladder. If you haven't got everything else set up perfectly, that if you're in a prep scenario, you're going to lose muscle because you're going to be in a big calorie deficit. Where does the body want to go? It wants to strip away tissue. Feed me that muscle.
Exactly.
You know,
and that's the thing. Your body is not going to be able to sit there. At the end of the day, the body's a survival machine. If you're in low calorie, your body's not going to be like, oh, hang on, I know I've got a bit of fat around my love handles, I'm going to start picking like that. Your body's not going to do that. But at least if you have RETATRUTIDE in your system, and again, going back to the glucagon receptor and how it's able to partition nutrients, that may help quite substantially. Because again, that's actually giving your body a signaling that it never had before. And that, again, I mean, that's one thing about the drug that it blows my mind, to be honest. I think it's revolutionary, to be honest.
And we're hearing now more and more elite level bodybuilders talk about it. Nick Walker being a big proponent of it. So it's clear that it's not just now a fat man's drug. Like, it is yet another bodybuilding tool. And we've seen plenty of supplements come and go. Like, a lot of the old peptides, you know, IGF-LR3 being a big one, and you know, this was going to be the game changer, and it proved not to be. But these GLPs really do seem to be something that I think will stick around.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to ask you the question on this, because going back to what you said there, like bringing up Nick Walker. Now, I said to you earlier, look how much he's brought his waist down, and I do believe that part of that is to do with RETATRUTIDE, again, eating away at the visceral fat. So my question would be to you, especially for like viewers looking in, you know, and again, I'm going to go back to the lazy people, and again, apologies for the offence, but it is what it is. If you're watching some of these pro bodybuilders, and I know, again, these people, the lazy people said, like, yeah, but he's on PEDs. Shut up. You still got to diet.
You couldn't look like it if you took steroids.
Exactly. You still got to put the work in. The bottom line is, no guy just sits there injecting all day and he just blows out of muscle and burns all the fat. It does not happen. So my question would be, why is it that when you see top level elite pro athletes in the world using this drug, and they're getting into exceptional shape, arguably some of the best shape of their life, why are the lazy people not looking at that? You know, lazy people watch these guys and they're sitting there thinking of excuses, and you can tell they are, because they're like, oh, well, it's got to be genetics. Oh, no, it's got to be the PEDs. But why is it those pros, and I think I know the answer to this one already, because I think I know what you're going to say, but what's the big difference then? What's the big difference between these pros? Is it the work?
It's mentality. It always boils down to mentality. And yes, it is the work, essentially. It's the willingness to put in the work. You know, PEDs of any kind, they're a tool. They will help towards your end goal. But without putting in any form of work, effort, discipline, consistency, it doesn't matter. Like, we all know of people who do their bodybuilding preps. They cheat on their diet all the time. They're taking all the drugs under the sun, but they look like shit when they get on stage because they don't have discipline and they can't be consistent.
And the bottom line is, it's in the name. It's a bit like supplements, for example. Supplements supplement your diet.
Exactly that.
These are, you know, again, with PEDs, performance enhancing. Keyword there, enhancing, not solution, enhancing. Okay, so again, they enhance your performance. Just like RETATRUTIDE will enhance your digestive system, it'll enhance your insulin sensitivity, it'll enhance your fat loss. You still got to put the work in.
Exactly that. And I think the take home from that is that RETATRUTIDE, or any of these GLPs, are a fantastic tool, but they need to be used responsibly and in line with your diet, your training, and everything else.
Yeah, and again, like, I mean, go back into the coaching side of things, and I'm sure you do the exact same thing. I always urge my clients to do their research before taking, even if, you know, even if I've got everything structured in plan, I still like my guys to go away and do their research, because at the end of the day, following a plan and gaining your own knowledge are two separate things. We can all follow a plan, but it doesn't mean you're learning anything from it. You know yourself, having a coach and stuff like that. You got your diet plan in front of you. You're just checking the list. But then something's got to click in your head eventually. You're like, well, hang on, why is this food here?
Yep.
Why is this meal here? Every meal is in place for a different reason. Different digestive like timings, obviously absorption rates. And then of course you got, for example, like post-workout, one of the favourites for most people nowadays, square bars, Cocoa Pops. Why is that? Because it raises insulin sensitivity, helps towards muscle growth, little things like that. So again, you know, even if, you know, people who might watch this are using Mounjaro and they are using Ozempic, and let's say that they might be looking and thinking, maybe I'll give RETATRUTIDE a go. Whether you're using this stuff and you're 3 months in, 4 months in, or if you're starting, let's say tomorrow's day one, please do your research. This isn't stuff you should play with.
Absolutely not.
And at the end of the day, this is exactly why it goes through 4 different trials of medical studies before they even get released onto market.
And then on top of that as well, if people are putting drugs into their body, they want to be doing it responsibly. That's why you should work with a coach. And, you know, we'll go on to PD mistakes later on in this conversation, really. But, you know, how many people have we seen who come to us and they've already got gyno or something like that, or, you know, blood work is all out of kill. And it's because they've tried to do it on their own. They've listened to other bros in the gym and fucked themselves up. You know, if you're thinking about taking anything, for God's sake, either research properly or employ a coach who is going to stop you making the mistakes, who literally knows what the fuck they're doing. They've proven it time and again with other clients. And that doesn't have to be us, it can be any coach, but you'll save yourself a world of pain.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. A little bit of guidance don't help. And I get it, you know, I understand that, like, it may get in the way of certain people's ego, because I do think people do have that bit of an ego about them, that, you know, they can do it themselves. You know, they watch their first ever TikTok video or their YouTube video. So now they're scientists.
An expert.
But as you say, then you get issues. Blood markers are absolutely off the charts. Gyno issues, amongst
infertility, all sorts of things. I've heard horror stories, even from other coaches, you know, who have done irresponsible things with people. But that's where research comes in as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
So we spoke earlier about the work. So let's go into the gym, because we've both got a very strong opinion on what you should be doing in the gym. So what are your big, I was going to say morals, but what are your big beliefs when it comes to training in the gym?
Big beliefs training in the gym. Probably not too dissimilar to yours. I believe, starting from top, intensity. We've all got different training styles. We've all tried different training styles. You know, God knows how many training styles are out there now, you know. Bottom line is, though, we know we need intensity. And I think one of the newest forms of training on the market lately, which I know we share a very common interest in with an opinion, is this training with supreme form, with absolutely zero weight or intensity
but I can feel the muscle jack. That's what I need to do. Just these slow, controlled movements. Bring it down, up. I can feel my lat, mate. That's all I need.
Yeah, that's it. And that's exactly why none of the pros train like that, and they look the way they do. But you know, training is it's a fun. I mean, it's evolved a lot, hasn't it? It's evolved a lot since let's say 1980s to 1990s. But I remember we spoke about this topic a few weeks ago, and I think we both sort of agreed in the sense that having the old school ethic with new school knowledge, and you combine the two. And I find, you talk to people, let's say, that are like, you know, in their 40s, 50s, 60s, for example, and a lot of the guys there, you know, they're all about throwing the weights. Don't get me wrong, they got the intensity there. There's not much form there, is there? You know, there's a lot of swinging, there's a lot of screaming and shouting and blah, blah, blah. I get it. We know you're in the gym. And then with the new school training, as you said, it's all about doing that 12-second rep with, you know, like a 3.3 second squeeze to like a 6.7 second.
And it has to be exactly that, otherwise it's suboptimal.
Exactly. You know, when, you know, you could probably apply yourself a little bit more, get a little bit more weight on the bar, have a good rhythm. I think rhythm is a good thing. Your first rep should look like your last. And I know people tend to say, yeah, but that will go against intent. No. That's why you have a spotter. Because if you're there and you're training, you've just got a solid, let's say 8 to 12 reps up by yourself, but you know you've got a couple in the tank. Now in modern day, they'll tend to say, stop there. So that's what I've already done. I've killed it. You haven't. You've still got a couple of reps in the tank. We know ourselves. If we're training someone or you're being trained by someone, you've got a spotter there, and that person can see you've got a couple of extra reps left in the tank, that person's going to get that out of you. And the thing is, it's those extra reps, that strain, that intensity, that's what breaks down the muscle. That is what signals growth. Your body, you know, don't get me wrong, if you're a newbie in the game and you're going by like this new school training, like I say, you know, with minimal intent, with like supreme form, all right, I'll start off well for you, because it don't take a lot.
That's a new stimulus.
Exactly. You know, when you're that new to the game, you do a bicep curl and grow your legs. You're that sensitive to training. But the bottom line is, when you get a couple of years into this, intensity comes over optimization.
And even then as well, like, yeah, if you've got a spotter, then they can help you with your form. But I'd rather see someone train and those last 2 to 3 reps be like grinder reps. So that's where the tempo involuntarily slows. And that's what I coach a lot of my guys saying, like, yes, your first and last rep should look exactly the same in terms of the pathway of movement, but you will find that you cannot lift it explosively, you know, and I still want you under control, but it's the lifting part of the movement that breaks down. That is when it's key, because like we've just said, this is when you recruit the most muscle fibers, breakdown of tissue, regrow stronger.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, going into another one actually, whilst we're talking about training, I still think you have that bit of a stigma between free weight and machine. What's your opinion on that?
I think both are useful as a tool. I actually do more machine work now. Personally speaking, like, I've had a lot of injuries over the years. You know, I push progressive overload massively, and doing it alone, it becomes not dangerous, but it's not as safe. Like, if you need to bail out of a lift on a machine, you just let it go. It's done. And let's face it, machines aren't what they used to be. They're all designed to have your biomechanics in mind. And if you're picking a reputable brand of equipment like your Cybex and Prime and that sort of thing, it's designed to target that muscle that's being worked, arsenal strength. You know, for me, I actually prefer a majority of machine training. As long as the intensity is there, that's the key. If your intensity is there, then use what you want.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. I mean, me personally, I'm an absolute sucker for a plate loader machine. I love plate loader machines because with a plate loader machine, you get you kind of get the stimulus from both types. So your free weight, and then let's say like a cable based machine.
Mm-hmm.
With a plate load machine, you have to control your resistance. You have to control your squeeze, your workload, your rhythm. And like some machines, let's face it, are very difficult. But we've even got that advanced now. Look at some of the prime machines, from like the shortened length
Oh yeah.
to the lengthened area of
The majority of people have no use even doing anything with that. Just load it all on the middle pin. Just load it on the middle pin. You don't need to alter resistance profiles if you're a newbie in the gym. You know, trying to work out again what's optimal. Just do the work.
Yeah, and that's the bottom line as well. So, you know, if you happen to be one of these people and you're very new to training, honestly, as good as it is to learn from a lot of the pros out there and a lot of coaches that post online, you know, they're showing different like training tutorials, you have to remember where they are and where you're not. Yeah, if you're heading into this for the first year, you know, like we're saying, like, and you know, we've both been there. We've both had like the newbie gains. You know, you can go train whatever you like, and you're going to grow. You will, because your body's simply not used to that stimulus. But when you're watching these guys on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, whatever it may be, they might be 10, 15, 20 years into their training. So that's where they're going to have to start, you know, changing where they're placing the weight on like the lower pin to the higher pin. You know, and you'll even notice these guys that they're throwing in drop sets, negatives, so on and so forth. They're finding way to build intensity because they've gone past that threshold. And, you know, I think a lot of, especially younger viewers, they forget that. You know, obviously genetics plays a part, of course. But the bottom line is your intensity needed for the first year compared to your intensity that you'll need in 10 years' time, it's going to be substantially different. And that is where you may need to start paying attention to where you're putting the weight, how you're trying to lift, the stimulus you're after.
But initially, the basics work, and it's about getting strong across the board. You know, even down to things like training splits and stuff. It doesn't really matter, particularly in your early years. You know, you can do your push-pull legs, you can do your upper lower, you can do your full body. As long as enough volume is distributed across body parts, you'll grow.
That's a good question for viewers, actually. Obviously, there's a big stigma about this as well, about like training plans. So obviously, like push-pull legs, upper lower, you've got your bro split. Does it matter?
I don't think so. No, like I was just saying, really, not really. The key is always the intensity. When you get more advanced, then yes, you are probably going to require more volume in certain body parts in which to grow. But as a newbie, you need to grow all over. So just start getting strong. And I know that JP puts a lot of stuff out there, Jordan Peters, who says, right, you know, for your first couple of years, you should just be in full body, 3 times a week, full body. Not everyone enjoys a full body split, and they can take quite a long time. And he's talking about, you know, 1 to 2 sets. Most people can't train with the required intensity to grow off of 1 to 2 sets, particularly in their early years. So I would actually prefer to break it down more. Like if they can train 4 or 5 times a week, something like push-pull legs upper lower, I think is a great split to divide up volume across the week and almost give more volume within a single session.
Yeah.
What about yourself?
And I'd argue say actually, because I know for whatever reason the bro split's kind of laughed upon, but I dare say actually that the further you get into your journey, especially through weight training, it's probably the way you're going to go. Because, you know, especially again, if you got your nutrition in check, let's just say enhancements are involved, you know, especially going into bodybuilding, everyone has lagging areas you want to build up. And I do find that's one thing that a bro split can bring that others can't, because you can then strategize your training to suit your lagging areas. You can pull back on the areas you don't really. So for example, for me, I can look at a barbell, my chest will grow. But then it'll come to my shoulders. I can hit them 3 days a week. They ain't gonna budge. You know, it's one of them. And again, a lot of people watching this, a lot of younger people will find this out. That first year of your training is glorious. It is amazing. You watch yourself morph throughout the year and evolve. But you'll also realise, especially if you're, you know, starting to learn what you're looking into, you know, again through watching educational videos and whatnot, you actually start to realise what areas grow faster than others, what areas lag. But what would you say would be a good strategy behind that one for like especially inexperienced lifters?
So if you find that you've got like a lagging body part, I would say stop tagging them on at the end of a workout. So, you know, your arms, and traditionally people will do, right, I'm doing all my chest first, I'll add on triceps at the end. Triceps already fucked, you know, or on a pull day, right, well, I'll just tag on biceps at the end. And then funny enough, they're like, oh, my arms are pretty shit. Put them at the beginning of your workout. Right, if it's a priority body part at the beginning of your session, that's what you're going to hit. And then when it comes to structuring volume across the week, I mean, they talk about like minimum effective volume and maximum adaptive volume and these sorts of things. They say about 6 to 8 sets is all that's needed to actually, stimulate stimulate muscles for growth. Some can take a little bit more. For me, I always found that legs, I need to train more often to grow, and I think a lot of that as well. In the early years, no one really trains legs hard, or they don't like leg training. And I think I found that out the hard way. For my first few years, it was all about the t-shirt muscles. And then I looked at myself one day and I was like, shit, I fucked it, because, the legs were really skinny. And honestly, it's only really this year, like I'm 20 years down the line in my training. It's only really this year where I look at them, I'm like, okay, I'm balanced now. So again, at times I was hitting legs 3 times a week. At times, since the last 2 years, 2 times a week without fail, with intensity.
And obviously, coming to watch your show, I can vouch for that. Legs were on point this year. They look very good. Obviously, a bit like myself, I think we both need a bit of hamstring, but
there's always more.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Obviously, the overall goal is literally overall size, but legs look good. So you've definitely saved them. It's definitely. But again, that's how old are you now? Sorry, you're
41.
Yeah. So most people who touch a day over 40 would say,
"Oh yeah,
too late." Isn't it?
Is, but it's not. I mean, I just did a photo shoot with Jamie yesterday, one of my clients, 44 years old, ripped to shit. Like honestly, he looked incredible. And a lot of the guys who I'm coaching, are probably 35 plus. Obviously, we know that testosterone starts to decline by about 1% a year. Most people will convince themselves, oh, I'm too old to get in shape. And we'll probably touch on this on another episode. It's bullshit. If you've got the work ethic and the drive, and I guess the big thing in the gym, we've spoken about intensity. It harks back as well to progressive overload, the principle of doing more. The weight is a tool that you need to grow bigger and stronger. Most people think that just means lifting weight from A to B. It's not. If you just focus on weight moving, you won't get big. You'll get stronger, you might get fatter, but to sculpt, refine muscles, you won't. You need progressive overload in there with good form. That is what's going to build muscle. And that is what is going to see you, even in your 40s, still packing on more tissue than the average guy at the gym who just goes through the motions, lift his same 3 sets of 10 every single session.
Yeah. And talk about muscle growth, Adam.
Go on.
Let's head into nutrition.
Cool.
Dirty bulking. What's your take?
Oh, mate, I've done it. So when I was a cop, I used to be that guy who would have McDonald's like 3 times a day sometimes because I needed to get my food in. There wasn't much in Wisbech, as you know. Now there's a little bit more, but I would do that. And then I would convince myself, right, I'm bulking. How much do I need to eat? I'd look in a magazine, 5,000 calories. That's what I need. Right, how do I get 5,000 calories in? Okay, a lot of eating, a lot of shit, dense food in terms of calories, but not in nutrition. And then I'd probably I did add in this thing called mutant mass, a mass gainer full of sugar. Mate, it was fucking horrendous. And honestly, I pity anyone that was crude with me because it went through me, and it wasn't pleasant. But we know dirty bulking doesn't work. And as much as you try and convince yourself that you'll be the next Sam Sulek, you won't be. You'll end up a fat, bloated, watery mess.
Or furthermore, Lee Priest. Now, a lot of people like to dive into that one. Now, can we just start with Lee Priest is an absolute genetic phenomenon.
An elite genetic freak.
We're talking about one of the greatest bodybuilders to ever step on stage. He beats some of the biggest names in history, some of the biggest guys in history, like Ronnie Coleman and Marcus Rule. And obviously, a lot of people, they'll find a picture of Lee Priest when he was like, I'm talking peak off-season,
massive,
like guts out here. And obviously, he went on stage absolutely shredded. Again, genetics, phenomenal. But it's not optimal for everyone. Genetics does come into play, and and I know we can all sit there and try and say, but what does dirty bulking have to do with like genetics? It has quite a bit to do with genetics because some people can handle that amount of food. Some people can get as big as what Lee Priest did and then look as shredded as he did on the Olympia stage. Now, can the average person do that?
Of course not.
Probably not, no, because they'll be getting on Ozempic. So, dirty bulking, going back to like, even like the eat big to get big thing, like that's again, in like to a degree, yes, but it's within moderation. You don't need to eat 2.5, let's probably over exaggerate,
1,000 calorie surplus. You don't need to be in it.
Like, all right, don't go wrong, you're gonna blow up. You'll blow your waistline as well. And you see it a lot. You see it a lot in pro bodybuilding, especially the amateur ranks. You can go to watch, say PCA shows, for example. I've been to a fair few of them. I've seen some guys that step on that stage, and I'm sure that they've gone down that route of eat big to get big. Yeah, don't get me wrong. Like their gut is just so overwhelmingly big. you lose that flow. You lose that lovely sweep to the quads. You lose that like nice hourglass flow up from the lats. Your shoulders don't pop as much. Your arms don't look as big. I don't see the point of jeopardizing your physique all for the sake of what? Let's say you get an extra pound. And then this is where you put it on the flip side. So you're then going to start a diet. You're going to then go into a fat loss phase. So let's say you're what, 50, 60, 70 pound up from your, let's say, stage weight.
It's a lot to lose. It's a more aggressive prep.
You're going to lose muscle doing that. Exactly. So, all right, you've gained that 1 extra pound. Well done.
And then on top of that as well, like there's only so much muscle tissue you can accrue over a certain period of time. So for every 3 pounds you're putting on, you're probably putting on at least 2 pounds of fat, you know, and that's being generous. So you're literally putting on this size for no good reason. And what you'd always find, and I'm sure you were the same with your first prep, because I know I was, I thought I had a good set of arms. I dieted down and I was so small. I was like, where the fuck has all this gone? And it's because, you know, the years of dirty bulking and stuff, all you do is blow up, put a load of water weight and fat on. And then as soon as you diet off, you're like, oh shit, I'm not as big as I thought. And no one can get their head around that. So what you'll find nutritionally in terms of mistakes being made, right, I'll gain 10 pounds. Oh shit, I look fat. I fucked it. I'll diet, lose 10 pounds, feel skinny. Right, I need to bulk again. And it's just that never ending cycle of bulking and cutting with actually no real muscle tissue added. And obviously if you're training how we've told you not to train as well, then you really are not making any progress.
No, that's true. And another thing within the industry that people seem to be falling to be a sucker for is one thing you brought up earlier, actually. And that's if you see a label that has protein on it.
Ugh, yeah.
So what's your take on that?
Well, the thing is, anything that's marketed as protein, it probably isn't high protein. I think some of them are like 8 to 12 grams of protein and they're marketing as protein. Like I want a minimum of 20 to 25 grams, you know, a minimum.
Yeah.
And so anything below that, it shouldn't even have the word protein on. It's a marketing tool at best because people associate protein with muscle growth, but it's bollocks. Like protein Weetabix, I think has about 4 grams more than your normal Weetabix. And then a lot of the time, these are really heavily processed foods. The protein content isn't from a good source of protein. You know, it's a lot of times it's soy protein. It's trash. And what you'll find is that actually you probably run into more digestive issues because it's so heavily processed.
It's funny you say that actually. So I remember like me and my partner, Tony, me and her, we had like these protein pancakes, funny enough, right? So obviously Scotch pancakes.
All of us have tried them because they sound so good.
Exactly. Scotch pancakes, they're an absolute delight, aren't they? So we tried the protein pancake. Don't get me wrong, the first couple of bites, not too bad. Get a few more bites in, you get this strange metallic chemical. I can't even distinguish the actual kind of taste that runs in the background, but again, it goes back into like how processed they are. Yeah. And it can't be good, and it can't be good. But the bottom line is, for people, especially going into that muscle building journey, fat loss journey, don't be fooled by a label which says protein on it.
Nah.
If you have a simple diet, you know, whether it's just like the whole chicken and rice thing, you know, eggs, oats for morning, that, you know, very, very basic, you're getting adequate amount of protein there, and you're actually getting very good protein.
And you'll find that you'll be able to eat more as well, because if you're having all like clean foods essentially, or 80%, 20% balance or what have you, you'll find that you get to eat way more. Like you look at the calories on, say, chicken and rice compared to a grenade bar. You're getting way more in terms of protein, micronutrients from the veggies that you're adding to your rice and everything as well, clean carbohydrate source. And then you've got a protein bar, which is best part of 240 calories, which is this big, and you're starving by the time you've even finished it.
Yeah, exactly. And then for what as well? You know, you've gone and paid, you got your grenade bar, you've just spent like £2, £53, which is essentially a meal for chicken and rice. You've just put yourself a barrel load of preservatives in your body. And I don't know about you, but I find that if I have a protein bar, and I'll be honest, it's been some years since I have as well.
I haven't had one for a while now.
Digestive issues. I find bloating, inflammation.
I read more about these issues. Like I've got quite a good digestive system, and it's not too much that causes me big issues in terms of like, a lot of people will be really sensitive to artificial sweeteners or dairy. I'm not one of those, so I can get away with a protein bar. But I just don't want to anymore, because I look at the ingredients profile on it, I'm like, that is crap. And like for a lot of my clients as well, I would say, you know what, have a dairy milk little bar with a protein shake. You're probably going to be less in terms of overall calories consumed, and get a far more greater whack of protein out off the back of it as well. And just satiating a little craving that you have. And, you know, we'll probably go into flexible dieting in a bit as well, because adding in chocolate bars and that, sometimes it's like opening Pandora's box. You know, if I have a chocolate bar, I eat that and I'm like, I really want some more. Whereas if I don't have it in my diet, I don't want it.
Yeah.
Do you find that?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I'm going to have to dive into that one
Go on
now
then.
because it's yeah, it's a topic. So yeah, with flexible dieting, I get it. You know, we want to have that diet we can all enjoy, but you have to remember when you go into a diet, especially in fat loss. I don't think it matters as much when you're going into a muscle building phase because it's inevitable you will put weight on. Fat will come along as well, you know. But again, you've got to do it in a controlled rate. But going back to fat loss with flexible dieting. Now, if you're somebody who has to go down a route of flexible dieting because, you know, you have all these needs and cravings and blah, blah, blah,
You
blah,
eat
blah,
like a child.
and then, you know, you're going day-to-day, like scale weight, and your scale weight's doing this because you're changing your food every single day. You're not getting an accurate reading, you're not getting a stable reading through the week, and that's going to cause a lot of issues in your head. You're going to cause yourself unnecessary stress, you're going to doubt yourself a lot more, and as well as another one that gets put into the mix, which again, I'm happy for my guys to do, especially when they've earned it. I'll throw an off-plan meal their way. I'll throw a refeed day their way. I'll give them the necessary tools when I feel they need it. But the bottom line is, if let's say, you know, midweek gets to, you've gone out somewhere, you've had an off-plan meal, you was expecting a drop in weight. Probably not going to get one, are you?
And then next day on the scales, oh shit, 4 pounds up. And look, I have clients whose heads really wobble after an off-plan meal, and I'm always saying to them, don't worry, it's a temporary state. You know, exactly that. You've just had a boatload of carbs, more sodium, fats, probably slowing the digestion of carbs as well. It is going to cause a spike. But we don't want that all the time. If it's just once, fine. But for me, flexible dieting is just open to abuse. If you were just changing your rice to white potato, sweet potato, pasta, okay, that's cool. That to me is proper flexible dieting. It's not going, well, I've got X amount of calories. I'm going to eat what my child's eating and have some, I don't know, like bird's eye potato waffles with some chicken nuggets and what have you. You know, like the nutritional values in those are not the same. The way it digests is not the same. It's all processed trash. And that's what people are doing to themselves and kidding themselves that, oh, it's just calories in versus calories out.
And I think this is one thing what people get confused with flexible dieting as well. But obviously, you just said there, pastas, potato, rice, you know, sweet potato, things like that. So just because you have these things in your diet plan doesn't literally mean that you've got to boil potatoes, for example. I'm just using this as an example. Boil your potatoes and then eat them as they are. No, you can use seasoning. You can use sauces, healthy sauces, especially tomato-based sauces or like, let's say, chili-based sauces. You know, they're very, very low in calorie. You can add that little bit of a kick to your food if you want that kick. You can add that little bit of like tang if you want it to your food. You know, Nando sauces, they're very good.
Passata is a great one as well. To create a pasta sauce with.
So there's a lot of tools you can use out there. So, you know, realistically, this whole flexi diet when you're after, like, you know, rather than looking at your cravings in a sense of like, oh, I want that chocolate bar, like you said, you can have like a Greek yogurt bowl, for example, 3 fruits in there, you know, little bits of like a little bit of granola on top of that.
Maybe even dark chocolate to get a little bit of that hit.
You know, there are ways to get around it. There's ways to curve the sweet tooth. You know, when we talk about dieting and we go into flexible dieting, you don't have to literally change your plan every single day. You don't need to do it. The bottom line is, the more consistent you are with your diet, the greater the result. And I know it's boring, we get it, but if you really want to look into let's say a whole year's plan, your anti training, your diet, cardio, supplementation, it's going to be, and the people that are consistent with this have the best results. You know, going back to, I'm going to bring up a client of mine, Tom Kelly. I showed you him. You know, he was with me 12, 13 weeks. We went on fat loss phase. And man, he is literally Mr. Consistent. He was absolutely phenomenal, top client. And he's a top guy as well. He's a really good guy. You know, and he went from honestly just looking like your bang average guy. So he had a 6-pack.
Yeah.
You know, he was walking through the gym. He was getting compliments left, right, and centre. You know, and obviously people are just going, oh, what's
the magic?
Yeah, what's the magic? What's the magic? There isn't any.
It's consistency.
The guy applied himself. He was consistent. He did the same thing day in, day out. And guess what? He got his off-plan meals. He got his refeeds. He was given the tools to feed himself back up when he was running flat. He never complained once. I think, honestly, in the whole 12 weeks, and calories got low, this guy was that consistent with it, and that persistent with his target in mind. He was coming up to me and saying, well, Jack, when are you going to drop the calories? How often do you hear that? You know, hats off to the guy. So, you know, like, look at, you know, even if it's people you know, ask them, what have they been doing? Because I can tell you now, if someone's had one hell of a result, whether it's going on stage or not, Whether it's just a fat loss goal or muscle building, I bet it's because they missed the consistent.
One of the things I like to say to people as well is, like, if you've got a kid, imagine looking your kid in the eye and saying the only reason I couldn't get in shape was because I couldn't control what goes in my mouth. Like, how fucking weak is that?
But even people blame it on their kids, saying, "Oh, I have to like do my meal prep around my kids." I don't use your kids.
Okay, well, we can talk about that a little bit, because obviously
Yeah.
I've got a 4-year-old girl, Olivia. And like Olivia, like all kids, she will have sweets, she will have chocolate. Do you want one, Daddy? No, thank you. You know, or that's it. You know, no, thank you. Very occasionally, yes, okay, I will. But I'm not eating just what she's eating. Like, can we go to Krispy Kreme? Yes. Well, she calls it the donut shop. Can we go to the donut shop? Yeah, okay. I'll take her out on a Saturday to the donut shop. Because she's having a donut. Do I need to have one? No. I sit there and I let her have one. She doesn't. Are you having one, Daddy? No, I'm all right today. I'm just going to have a Diet Coke. Okay. She doesn't care. What she cares about is that I'm there and present with her. It's not about me going, oh, well, the kids wanted a pizza, so I've got to have a pizza. No, you don't. It's just another shit excuse you tell yourself to convince yourself that you can't make progress because you're keeping your kids happy and it's all about them. Like, my daughter at 4 years old talks about being healthy, about being strong. She asks on the plate, Daddy, is this protein? Is this carbs? You know, oh, is this fat? You know, all these little things. Daddy, look at my muscles. Where has she picked all that up from? Daddy, you off to the gym? Daddy, can I come to the gym? That's what I want my kids to be about. And it's not about demonizing foods for her. Far from it. She has chocolate, she has sweets, but she's educated. And already she's picking up onto this healthy lifestyle. And Daddy, watch me exercise. Whereas your average guy is sitting on his ass on the sofa. Kids want to play. I can't play. I'm too tired. I've got no energy. I've been at work. Well, you've got no energy, not because of work, but because of the way you feel yourself. And actually, you know what? If you just focused on yourself for one moment in time, then what you'll find is that you're actually going to be a better parent to your kid and get more out of it. And you're going to live longer and be around them longer.
And it goes back to something you said. I remember a video you posted on Instagram probably a couple of months ago now. And it's about when you spoke about leading by example. So whether it is your kids involved with your client, you've done exactly that. And that's exactly why Liv's doing it. Like, she's asking you these questions. You know, it's fantastic to see, because obviously, again, it'll upset people, but there is a obesity epidemic.
Oh, massively.
It's massive. It's out of control. So it's refreshing to hear that a 4-year-old can have that mentality, because if a 4-year-old can have that mentality, what's stopping you? You know. But no, I think that's it's amazing to see. So yeah, like, hats off to you, mate, because you know a lot of parents out there could do better. You know, and again, there's a lot of coaches out there who could do better and lead by example. So I think, you know, what you've done there is a top draw job.
Cheers, man. I appreciate that.
You're doing your job, and that's what it's all about.
And it is, and it's combining this lifestyle with being a good parent as well. And you know, I think, you know, a period in your life you'll have that to come, and you'll want to lead by example as well, and kind of instill the morals and ethics into a child to make them succeed in all areas of life, and that means functioning at their best. I mean, I still believe that. You know, I'm going massively off topic and going off on one here, but things like ADHD, autism, I think a lot of that is derived from early diet, early lifestyle.
When we're talking about like certain topics like parents, you know, and things like this, we're not genuinely talking about across the board, everyone in the UK, everyone in the world. You know, not everyone is the same. Obviously, there's some fantastic parents out there, some fantastic people, some very healthy people that are not lazy. You know, we're just obviously talking a lot through opinion-based matters and experience, and through especially what we've seen for our own eyes. So talking of which, PEDs.
Oh, where do we start with this one? Okay, the big one, I guess, from my point of view, is people see that as the foundation. Everything else comes second. It's not. That, to me, should be, if you're going to go down that route, that's your cherry on top. Okay? You know, your bread and butter is, can you train properly? Can you stick to a diet? Can you manipulate your calories in line with your goals, those sorts of things, and can you adhere to that? Then on top of that, if you've got things like your sleep right, because sleep is so neglected, your output right, okay, maybe now is the right time to add something in, but you have to have all your ducks in a row. And it doesn't mean blasting a gram of gear from the off. And I think that's a big thing that I say.
Yeah, and that sadly, that is where TikTok comes into this again, because, again, I'll use Sam Sulek as an example, but obviously that certainly ramped up PED usage amongst younger users out there, you know, and again, it falls back into what I said earlier about, like, okay, I've watched my first TikTok video, so now I'm a pro. Now, personally, you know, let's say we've ticked all the boxes like you just said. Now, my first protocol as a coach when I'm going into this, I won't even put a guy on a cycle. It'll be TRT first. I want to see how he reacts and how he adapts to a very, very minimal baseline dosage. because you'll find that some people, even on a TRT dosage, will get a bad side effect because some people simply do not have that genetic response to where they can handle gear properly.
Yeah, and that can manifest itself in obviously estrogen going sky high, but also mindset as well, which is a big one. Because obviously we all hear the downsides of roid rage and all that sort of stuff, and a lot of time that's just down to abuse, but also that person's mentality in the first instance.
That is one thing that people don't understand as well. Now, let's face it. Let's just say that, you know, someone's cut you off on the road. You're going to have a bit of road rage, right? Now that you could have been at this exact same point, you could have been completely off cycle, nothing in the system, or you could have that version of you that is on cycle and you do have stuff in the system. Now, people straight away, if you've got PEDs in your system, will turn and say, oh, it's because of the gear. No, I didn't have anything in my system at the time. So where people fail with this one, especially like from an outsider's point of view, is that PEDs are cholesterol based. So with that, they tie a lot to your mental state. So if you're a person that happens to be very aggressive and you're running something that increases androgens, which again aligns with your aggression, guess what? You're going to become more aggressive. You know, that is fact. Like every drug as well has a different side effect. I believe so mentally.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you're going, I mean, you know, this is going really into the dark world now, but if you're talking like, let's say like Trenbolone, for example, now I don't think anything out there can screw anyone up more neurologically than that drug itself. And I think that, I mean, I spoke about it on Facebook a few days ago. I hate the stuff. I can't stand it. Don't get me wrong. I'm very open about my usage. I'll take it if there's a purpose, and I understand there's purpose within prep. But because I take it doesn't mean I have to like it. And I mean, going into horror stories, I have seen some horror stories with Tren. But again, it's all when it comes to mega dosing, you know. And again, this is where dosaging comes into play as well. Now you can have like, this probably won't mean much to people, but let's say you got one guy on 100 milligrams Tren, you got the next guy on 1,000. The reaction difference and how that person handles it is catastrophically different, you know. Even with testosterone, that is primarily what gives men the aggression hormonally, especially like, again.
You can see it in nature, can't you? The males with the higher testosterone levels, they tend to be the more aggressive of the pack, the alpha males, and that's nature.
Yeah, that's it. And then, you know, if you're going to then put like synthetic testosterone in your body, and then you're going to elevate dosages through the roof, and guess what? You're not going to be yourself. But that's where mental state comes into it, because this is where experience can come into play, and this is where knowledge also helps. At a certain point in your journey through PED usage, you can kind of define what does what. I mean, I don't know about you, but I know I can with certain things. I can kind of tell where, like, if I'm having a bit of a wobbly moment, let's say, I can sometimes sit there and think, you know what, that's not me, I won't act like that normal.
Yeah.
So you kind of like, maybe you just got to give yourself a minute or two, just chill out a little bit and go again. But again, this is where knowledge is key. You have to learn what your side effects are. And we're not just, I know we're like talking more mentally here, but there's a lot more side effects than just the mental side of things, which, I mean, I'm sure you could probably get yourself into on this one.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, a lot of guys will talk about nipple sensitivity. That's a big one. And, you know, I have guys who have come to me from other coaches who have used other PEDs, or they've been self-coached, and they've ran a cycle for far too long. So in my view, like, if you're running a cycle, you can extend a cycle all the way up to about 20 weeks if it is a smart cycle. Beyond that, then you're going to start running into potential issues, I would suggest. But blood work will always dictate whether you will or not. But it's the aggressive blasting from the off. And we know, like, people on their first cycles, you know, they'll be blasting 750 milligrams of testosterone, then probably adding in another compound, because they now believe in this safer use model. So instead of going for, instead of a gram of test, I'm now going to go for 750 milligrams of test. Then I'm going to add in something else and something else. You know, before they know it, they're on the first cycle of like 1.5 grams. Yeah. So you're like, what the fuck are you doing?
One thing that really bugs me, especially within this topic, and again, going back to Tren. So people go for that, and again, normally, pretty much 99% of the time, test is the first one to go in. And then, for whatever reason, it seems to be like an anadrol or a Tren that goes in next. That seems to be like the common pathway, don't it? And what I don't understand about this is, because then you'll get a lot of guys, and I mean, I still hear it at the gym, I see it on YouTube, I see it on Instagram, and they'll talk about how Tren's this amazing muscle builder, when it's not.
It's a composition drug. If you really learn into, of course, obviously with androgens and anabolics, you will gain a bit of muscle. But what I don't understand is, again, if people open their eyes and actually, you know, read a book or two, read a bit of texture, it's, you know, train at a high dose after, let's say you get 8 to 12 weeks in, depending on the ester, it shuts down your androgen receptors. There is nothing on there. There is no peptide you can attach. There's no supplement you can attach to your plan. It will shut down your AR receptors. But then people look at Master and say, "Oh, well, it's mild,
It's weak.
Oh, it's
Weak.
weak. I
Don't
can't
get
do
any gains
But
from
then
that.
you learn, you know, you read into that, you do studies on that, and guess what? That heightens your androgen receptors, meaning you can use less to gain more.
And that's what drug use should be about, or PED use. It should be getting the most result from taking the least amount possible.
Absolutely.
Okay, so, you know, to wrap up PEDs for now, really, I think, as I've just said, it's about getting the most from the least, and it's about being responsible with your usage, having all of the other things in play, diet, training, other supplementation, the foundations, and then seeing that as the cherry on the top, not the actual fucking cake.
Bottom line is, health is all about longevity.
Yeah.
Now, you know, when you're running like lower dosages of stuff, you know, your longevity is going to be very much more intact than you would be if you're blasting dosages through the roof. So you got to remember that, especially if you're looking to be a bodybuilder. And I'll always relate things like this to bodybuilders, because at the end of the day, when you go into bodybuilding, that is where I suppose the extremes come out, don't they? So instead of like blasting non-stop for 5 years, cutting your life in half, lower the dosage, work on your diet, work on your training, work on your supplementation, make sure everything is in place, and work towards the perfect synergy between the four.
And you'd be amazed at the progress you can make as well, particularly if diet and training is aligned really well.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So speaking of extremes, we have the Mr. Olympia coming up in, what is it, 11 weeks or something like that? It's coming around quick. So to tie this up, I think, let's go into just top 5 men's open predictions in placings. I think we'll have the same people, but I think we might have them in a different order.
Yep.
I'll let you go first.
Well, you know me. I'm going to go back.
Paddy.
I'm going to say the same thing I always say. If Paddy Chupan brings the 2023 Arnold Classic condition, his shape he brought then, I think it's lights out for everyone.
Okay. And we're also going to assume here that everyone is on
the ball. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
Because they won't be. So you're saying number 1 is going to be
Paddy
Paddy.
Chupan,
Yeah.
number 1. I'm so torn on this, and I'll be honest, I've been thinking about this one for about 2-3 days. I cannot make my decision. I think I'm going to go with Samson for seconds.
Yeah.
I'm going to go because he is reigning champion. He does have an amazing shape, but fantastic aesthetics. The size is overwhelming. But the reason why I've been torn on this one, and it is a very close second and third for me, and that third's going to be Nick Walker.
I think I've got Walker in third.
I think Nick Walker is going to bring the heat this year. Now, if we're going into the terms of muscularity, Nick's the only one who's really going to compete with Samson. Yes, he's a shorter guy, but if you're going pound for pound, he smashes Samson out the park. So, for that reason, I think it's... yeah, right. I'm going to go Paddy, Samson, to Nick Walker.
Yeah.
If Andrew Jack comes in,
Yeah.
I'm going 4th.
Yeah.
Derek 5th.
Nice. Okay. I'm similar. But I'll tell you who I saw the other day who was looking wild. Martin.
Yeah.
Man, he hasn't bought it this year. And he was a bit of a disappointment in some of the earlier shows. But then I've seen some pictures recently. I'm like, oh, fucking hell. And I hate getting sucked into Instagram photos because it is so easy. Like we've both made that mistake with Crizzo, thinking this guy is going to be a world beater, and yeah, it didn't translate. But if we're now making top 5 predictions, I'm going to go Samson first.
Okay.
I think he's going to bring it, and then I will go Paddy, Nick, Derek, and then as a bit of a wild card for 5th, I'm going to throw Martin in there.
Yeah. Yeah, to be honest, I was thinking Martin for 5th. Honestly, I think that Derek's going to have a drop. He
I think so.
doesn't seem to have the consistency of others. I find that seems to be a bit of his issue, because you go, for example, you look at his Olympia stat. Don't get me wrong, obviously he looks amazing. He won't be on that stage.
They're all brilliant. They're all brilliant.
But then when you compare it to like the Pittsburgh or Arnold Classic, I mean, he was top tier. Like that Arnold Classic, I think that's probably his best shape to date.
But Pittsburgh show is beatable because obviously Walker took him in the first show.
Yeah, Walker should have had it. You know, yeah, it's a tough one. But the only reason I don't have Martin Fitzwater in 5th, and you know my opinion on this. For whatever reason, especially in the last 5 years, size seems to be the one attribute or the one trait that seems to be overlook every other statistic within bodybuilding or like trait. So honestly, I think for that reason, because he's not as big as the other guys, I think that's what would stop him.
Potentially.
Personally, I absolutely love his shape. I think he's phenomenal, and I do genuinely believe he'll be up there top 3, maybe even challenging for the win one year. But I think when you got people like Andrew Jack and Samson in there, and they're overwhelmingly big, like Nick Walker as well, of course, I think that's... Yeah.
I guess we'll see. I mean, that's the beauty of the Olympia, and it's also subjective as well.
Yeah.
Like, I see where you're coming from, but then you've got the shorter guys in the mix as well. You see your Haddis and your Derricks. I mean, Haddy blows condition out the water, and he's just a ball of muscle.
And I'll tell you one other name, actually, you really got, well, 2 actually, I've got, that I think are going to slide into the top 10, and one of them's already done it before, and that's Tony O'Burton. I think that shape he brought to the, what was it, the Dubai Pro. I personally thought he beat Beirut.
Yeah, I did.
But the other one is Beirut.
If he can make it, and I don't think he will. I think all the stuff that's gone with Iran, I think that's his visa gone. Like, I know that they're saying that
could then eliminate the Haddy.
Well, they say there was rumours about him potentially having a 10-year visa. They say that potentially he's somehow, I don't know, I think with Evogen, like, was registered as an employee there because obviously the sponsorship and all that sort of thing, which enabled him then to get across, whereas Beirut doesn't have those links. I guess it remains to be seen.
Yeah. Well, that is very true. I suppose we'll have to end it here.
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
the first episode. And when we get to episode 2, we will be talking, we will definitely go back into the PED talk, amongst other topics, which I'm sure you'll...
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we can always touch more on nutrition, training, and giving people some guidance that will see them make actual quantifiable progress. You know, some of the values that we instill in our own clients, maybe talk about some of our own clients and their journeys as well. And then what we would like as well is some listener questions.
Yes, we'd love some listener questions. So what we will do, we will post through social media, whether it'll be on personal page. We're also having a podcast page being developed on Instagram. Feel free to DM either personally or through the podcast page. And one other thing we're definitely going to be doing in the future, which is very exciting, is that we're going to try and get some guests on the show.
Absolutely. And then, Jack, what's your Instagram page, mate?
My Instagram page is Evolve with Jack, and yours is?
Adam Northover Transformations. So if anyone is watching this, they want to talk to us directly, whether it's about coaching, some advice, something about the podcast, just reach out, drop us a message.
Drop us a DM. It's not going to cost you nothing. It don't hurt to learn. It's all for free.
Exactly that. And then with that, guys, if you could like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, do all those good things for us and help us with the algorithm and get this seen by as many people as possible, that would be appreciated.
Yeah. And hopefully you enjoy the first episode. Obviously this will get better as we go along, and we'll bring in more and more topics along the way. So
Perfect.
we look forward to hopefully getting a little bit of feedback from this as well. Any talking points you'd like for us to go over, we'll certainly discuss them, and we'll no doubt put them into a routine and a strategy for the future.
Perfect. That's Beyond the Pump, episode 1, wrapped up.
Where the science meets the grind.
Love that.